Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox Podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox Podcast. And this week we have with us, joining us from the beautiful country of Spain, Rayyan Karim. Hey, Rayyan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vasco, thanks for having me. And thanks for listening, guys. Looking forward to this one.
Absolutely. So Rayyan is an Agile coach and trainer, and also the founder of Design Your Future, with presence in the UK and UAE. Rayyan is also known for supporting leading executives at the FTSE 100 and NASDAQ corporations to create transformational results quickly. Rayyan, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
That was a good intro. I might actually steal it for myself. It was a nice condensed version. So yeah, thanks for that. Myself, I was born and raised in East London, raised just next door in a place called Essex. I knew absolutely nothing about technology or Scrum Mastery or Agile, anything as I was growing up. It wasn't until I finished university and found my way into a graduate scheme that I first started hearing of this Agile stuff. And it was music to my ears, man. It was, when you're joining a big bank and you're from a very common working class background on a graduate scheme, it can be a little bit overwhelming, right? You've got many people there that are from the best universities. Their parents have worked in corporates before. They know what they're getting into. And they're very used to putting on this corporate facade, right? And go to work being someone that you're maybe not being entirely yourself. You're not being completely authentic. So it was difficult for me in those first 18 months before I found my way into a Scrum Master role. And the reason why I found my way into that Scrum Master role was purely because I'd always believed business is best when people can be themselves. And I was in an environment where I felt that I could not be myself. So as a result, it made me seek to look at where in this organization is change happening? Where are all the change makers, right? I'd managed to get a reputation in the first 18 months on this grad scheme of being able to make change. But I wasn't in an environment really that was supportive of that. It was very difficult. So, fortunately, getting a bit of a profile inside of an organization means you can start to get what you want from your career path. And I found this area of the bank that were doing £1 billion investment into 10 different core services. And they were applying agility, systems thinking, service design, all roped up into one method. And I had this fantastic opportunity that I sort of engineered for myself to get involved as a Scrum Master. So I started off, first of all, I come out the train station in London Bridge, I walk through Borough Market, you have all those smells of a market that you're used to. There's a lot of fish that get sold there. You walk through the market, you get down to the Thames, and just around the corner there was an office building. I don't know if they still have it or not. This is many years ago now, called Red Line Court, very traditional corporate office. But in the basement, there was this new funky work environment, right?
The best projects are always in the basement, aren't they?
Exactly, right? You could write on the walls. They had stuff all over the walls, right? They had customer journeys on the walls. They had personas on the walls. They had their roadmap, their product roadmap there. Every team had their own sort of corner or part of the office. And if there wasn't a wall, they were surrounded by whiteboards. And that was just so different to any other part.
Very often when we get into this kind of environments, at least it happened to me and many of our guests as well, we kind of feel this calling, right? Like, okay, this is where I belong. Is that how you felt at the time?
That's exactly how I felt. Yeah, you nailed it on the head. It was somewhere that I could see people were dressed down, first of all, right, which is a good indicator because people can now express themselves.
So no suit and tie.
No suit and tie. There was even a dude, right? Even though you're in London, there was a dude in flip-flops and shorts, right? And I think he just did it because he could.
In some of the countries where I've worked, I think those would be sandals and white socks. Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, this guy's nailed it, right? But at least he can be himself. And what does that mean for the ideas that you put forward? What does that mean for the ownership of your personal productivity and performance with your team. I think it makes you care more about the workplace. And basically, I saw how leaders changed. And I was working directly with those leaders, on the grad scheme. We worked directly with the leaders, the executives, the directors. And I got a very personal inside scoop into their struggle to become this new type of leader, right? And I started to really brush up against what it means to change as a person.
Well, so let's dive into that, though, because, of course, today's Monday, so we're going to talk about the story of failure. And obviously, failure is part of everybody's journey. And that's why we start the podcast week exactly with this story, to make sure everybody remembers that failure is coming, whether you like it or not. And you best be prepared, as they say. So, Rayyan, tell us a story of one of those moments, a moment where you, as a Scrum Master, you did your best, but as it happens to all of us, at that time, the best just wasn't good enough. So walk us through that story.
Yeah. So, good thing about failure is it always comes with learning. And obviously, if you don't learn, you'll continue to fail in exactly the same way. And learning can be applied in a few different ways. So I learned about myself in this example that I'll give. I learned about myself professionally, but also learned about myself personally, and where that might then change the course that I choose for myself and what I'll do with my life and my career. So I was in the same building that I was just describing a moment ago, except now we're not in the basement, right? I'd evolved from a team of 8 in a commercial banking transformation to a mortgages transformation, a few floors up. And because a few months had passed, a few more of the office floors had been converted into this new agile way of working, right? And I took on this team from Accenture, who said they were doing agility, but were really doing project management. And they weren't exhibiting any of the right behaviors. It was really command and control. And so it was quite easy to make an impact, I had a 30-person team, which is huge, as we know. They were dispersed. We had 2 sites in India, 2 sites in the UK, both at opposite ends of the country, right? In India, we had 1 west and 1 east. In the UK, we had 1 in London and 1 in Halifax up north. So to get 1 bit of value out the door, the work item had to go through 4 different core skill sets, and they'd mapped those skill sets to each location. So as well as time, smart. And it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. But for me, really good to make an impact quickly. So we was able to take their delivery time, their lead time down from a month down to 10 days, which is obviously a clear win. However, because of the structure that Accenture had put in place, there was also this sort of almost useless role, in my opinion, of a delivery manager, right? So the product owner was already coordinating the releases. The engineers were already coordinating the quality and effectiveness of the software that would go into those releases. I was helping them make sure that the whole process was slick and that the team could, perform at a faster turnaround time with increased quality. The delivery manager was a bit defunct, right? But it was a senior leader in the mortgages space. And he was very good friends with the director. And so I had to stop this person from interacting with the team and telling them what to do. And he would try to stop the team from taking their own decisions. He would actually say, no, you're not doing that. No, you're not changing the cadence that you work with. No, you're not changing the composition of your team. No, you're not focusing on different measures. No, you're not reorganizing the backlog in that way. And I would have to just continually get in his way and prevent him from disrupting the team. And so me and him had many run-ins, right? And he got
so you, instead of helping the team, you started to protect the team from this interference. But what did that lead to?
I had to do both at once, right? I mean, ultimately what it led to was me effectively man-marking this delivery manager, right? I tried to build a personal relationship.
So you were the fullback to that.
Yeah, I was exactly that, right? I was rugby tackling him. Every time we spoke on a call and after a call, and then I started before calls having a chat with him and letting him know, like, this is the direction that we're going as a behavior, and therefore we'll see increased results. And I just asked him to sort of trust me and let's give it an experiment and let's see how the team performs. I was clearly right? Within like 3 months, the team had gone from 1 month lead time to 10 days. But my relationship with this delivery manager was severely impacted. Now, I didn't think that was a problem, right? And I didn't think I'd failed. I thought I'd done a fantastic job. I thought I'd done the right thing until it comes around to performance management time, right? And at this moment, I was actually asked to leave the mortgages team and go and join a 70-person team as the lead coach, Scrum Master. And so therefore the director knew I was leaving, right? So anyway, we're having this performance management discussion. My team's had fantastic results. The program as a whole have started to learn from our cadence and our way of working. You could argue we've impacted the whole program. The measures that we started to use, the program started to use. And so I thought...
let's take that example and think about Luke out there. Luke is our avatar Scrum Master, struggling with the forces of evil, of course, as we all do, and trying to figure out, like, how do I help the team, but at the same time help this delivery manager understand what we are trying to do and learn to support the team when I leave, right? So if you would have to go back to that point in time and live through the same story, what would you do differently to not only help the team, obviously, including protecting and tackling, as you said, but also to help this delivery manager to step up and understand what we were trying to do there as an organization?
You see, unfortunately, sometimes people have to go through the change normatively, right? They have to get their hands dirty and go through the change. So I believe that delivery manager was never going to change his beliefs or his views, his values, his opinions of how work should really happen until he's gone through an experience that then becomes successful. However, he's going to kick and scream throughout that entire process. So I got the first bullet, right? I was able to help him go through that first change experience, which was very uncomfortable for him. I don't think that could have been done any differently, right? He didn't want to engage. He would sometimes politely and sometimes unpolitely suggest that the theories that we leverage are incorrect and that they're not factual and that there's not enough evidence for them. And it didn't matter how much evidence we gave him, bearing in mind this is a good 8 years ago. It didn't matter how much evidence we gave him. He just was very set in his ways and in his identity within the workplace. So I think if I could rewind the clock, the one thing I would do, I'll spend a bit more time on, because I did try this, but I maybe only knocked on the door with this once, and maybe I should have continued to knock on the door with this, was discuss the change of identity within the workplace that's required as a leader, going from a traditional banking environment to a more modern way of working. We did discuss it. Again, we disagreed often, and I couldn't quite ever get him into taking a leap of faith to run an experiment of his own behaviour. But if I could rewind the clock and have it my way, that's where things would have landed, right? We would have been able to get him to consciously and willingly experiment with his behaviour. But yeah, that was a fail.
We do have sometimes the luxury of ignoring, right? Like, just let people do what they think they should do because it has no big impact on the team. But other times we don't have that luxury, and we do need to do man marking, as you said, i.e. work constantly and diligently with this person and figure out what their motivators are, try to, shape the message so that it goes through given the mental model they already have as they start. And of course, make sure that they have the basic training, because if they haven't even heard the terms, they're not going to understand what they mean when we mention.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, and just for context and people listening, every team in that transformation program had gone through agile training. They'd gone through systems thinking training. They'd gone through service design training. They'd gone through a very conceptual training. They'd gone through a very mortgages specific training. They'd applied that already in their ideation or in their incubation phase. Once they've studied their system and they created their as-is journeys, they then go through an incubation. They decide what the to-be journey is going to be. They then break that down into a backlog. They then discuss how they're going to work. He'd been through all of that, right? But as soon as you get out the room, default behavior, as I say, if I could have got him into that continuous improvement by looking at his identity in a workplace and how that could impact the team and the results we were all looking for, then maybe that would have been a better way to win.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just have to accept that you can't win all the battles, and that's okay. Rayyan, exactly. Thank you very much for sharing this story with us.
No problem. My pleasure.
Monday is about what we learned from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox Podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.